The story opens with the heart monitor of a patient in critical condition. On a nearby globe, a single bird perches, symbolizing a fragile world. A young man, Nishizono Hasuchi, clasps his hands in prayer, his face etched with despair. He whispers to himself, "I don't care if I can't be a hero. I'm fine with being a villain, too. I just want to be." His thought continues, revealing his desperate wish. Someone who can protect what I need to protect. The scene pulls back to show Hasuchi sitting hunched over by a hospital bed, where a loved one lies motionless, kept alive by machines. This singular, personal desire is the driving force behind his journey. The scene abruptly shifts to a formal assembly. A man notes that the representatives of all the surviving nations seem to be present. The atmosphere is tense and expectant. We are introduced to some of these powerful leaders. America's president, B.D. Stonefeller, crudely tries to shake hands with Russia's president, Daniil Volkov, mentioning the tragedy of the previous president's assassination. Nearby, France's president, Yvette Muller, stands aloof. Volkov, scarred and wary, coldly rejects the handshake, saying he doesn't like touching other people. More leaders are shown. Italy's president, Liliana Aglietta, remarks that this might be the first time in 5 years that nobody has been assassinated. Next to her is Brazil's president, José Oliveira. Below, China's chairwoman, Long Inying, the leader of the top-ranked nation, notes that Japan's representative, Nishizono-san, was the first to arrive as always. The focus shifts to the Japanese delegation. A secretary, Okiyo, nervously confirms that the meeting is finally getting underway. Beside him sits the man mentioned earlier, Japan's 236th Prime Minister, Nishizono Renjiro, who coldly tells his secretary to pay the other leaders no mind. The stage is set in a vast, circular assembly hall. William Svalbard, the 59th Prime Minister of Norway and chairman of the assembly, takes the floor. He thanks the representatives of the 16 surviving global areas for convening. Svalbard begins his grim presentation, showing holographic data compiled by an artificial intelligence named Gaia. The news is catastrophic. Ecosystems have collapsed, hundreds of species have gone extinct, and carbon dioxide levels have skyrocketed. Based on all this terrifying data, Svalbard reveals that the AI Gaia has calculated the amount of time humanity has left on the face of the Earth. An impatient leader tells him to skip the formalities and give him the data. Svalbard agrees, preparing to reveal the data on the crucial points concerning humanity's global habitat, the planetary boundaries. The horrifying conclusion is revealed with a dramatic image of the Earth shattering. The time humanity has left is 100 years. The leaders react with stunned silence and shock. 100 years, one exclaims. Italy's president, Liliana Aglietta, remarks with a smirk that she's amazed the Earth is even in such a sorry state, as if finding dark humor in their doom. Australia's 55th Prime Minister, Cornelius Clyburn, protests in disbelief. He argues that at the last general meeting 5 years ago, they were told they had 963 years left. He can't accept that the number has dropped so drastically. Svalbard clutches the podium, his face pale with dread. He explains that the planet is on the verge of collapse, an event that could happen tomorrow or even today. The planet, he says, no longer has the strength left to even cry out. The leaders begin to bicker amongst themselves. India's president, Anika Ramanujan, suggests it's better if their citizens remain in the dark. Meanwhile, the leaders of the UK, Canada, and another nation trade barbs about the state of their own countries, showing the disunity and contempt they have for one another. Desperation mounts. Egypt's president, Laila Fahad, insists they must keep searching for another way. Nigeria's president, Kenneth Adjumadi, desperately questions if Gaia's prediction could be wrong, clinging to the hope that it's only the calculation of an AI. Cutting through the noise, Vietnam's 41st chairwoman, Luong Hien, brings a cold dose of reality. She asks if they have forgotten the times they trusted artificial intelligence and paid the price. She then directs everyone's attention to the prime minister of the lowest-ranked nation. All eyes turn to the podium for rank 16. It is Japan. Prime Minister Nishizono Renjuro sits with his hands clasped, ready to speak. Prime Minister Nishizono stands and addresses the assembly. He states that as they've spoken, Earth's lifespan has shrunk even further. He reminds them that they didn't come here to argue. They've known for 5 years what they were here to do in the event that humanity's survival time dropped to 100 years. He reminds them of their prior agreement to avert the total extinction of humanity, an agreement dubbed the Earth Tuning Agreement, which involved culling the population of the being which presented the greatest threat to it. The horrifying truth of Gaia's calculation is revealed. The being that poses the greatest threat to humanity's continued existence, the most dangerous species on the planet, is the human race itself. And the method for this culling, this terrible last-ditch effort for survival, is revealed to be the nation-toppling battle. Prime Minister Nishizono explains that this is their top priority, the choosing of lives through an impartial means, one which would not further destroy the Earth. The other leaders listen in grim silence. He declares with chilling resolve that they will use national champions, the strongest humans prepared by each nation. Through them, they will wage a war for their respective national survival, a war which, as the name implies, will determine which nation shall be destroyed. The leaders look on, some with apprehension, others with cold calculation. The finality of the proposal hangs in the air as the clockwork mechanism above continues its inexorable countdown. Japan's secretary, Rekkyou, reels in horror as he processes the true meaning of the proposal. He realizes the nation-toppling battle is not for the good of humanity, but is simply an effective war to decide which country to destroy. It's nothing more than sanctioned genocide. India's president, Anika Ramanujan, screams in protest, calling the plan for what it is, pure genocide. But Prime Minister Nishizono's face is a mask of cold resolve. He cuts through the outrage with a simple, terrifying command. Now, let us decide. With a chilling glint in his eye, Nishizono lays out their stark choice. They will decide whether we simply die or whether we live and die. It is a choice between guaranteed extinction for all or a brutal fight for survival that ensures some will live at the cost of others. Nishizono frames his monstrous proposal as a necessary evil, stating they are merely reducing the human population now so that humanity may survive in the future. One of the other leaders can only remark, "Man, you didn't have to be so mean about it," highlighting the casual cruelty of the decision. The ultimate cold justification for this mass culling is displayed for all to see. After all, it's better for there to be less carbon dioxide. The fate of billions is reduced to an environmental variable. With no further objections, the chairman, William Svalbard, raises a hand and declares the matter settled. The world leaders have agreed to the horrific plan. Their faces a mixture of resignation and despair. An order is given. The leaders of the 16 nations are to present their chips and hand them over to Gaia, the artificial intelligence. These chips are revealed to contain something vital, the passcodes to all of humanity's oxygen masks. In this single act, they are surrendering the fate of their people and the world to the cold calculations of an AI. A giant completed sign flashes as Gaia accepts control. The approval is finalized. Prime Minister Nishizono instructs the leaders that they have 1 year to prepare their national champions for the coming battle. The meeting is dismissed. As the leaders stand together in the now darkened hall, the final decree is made. Let the nation-toppling battle begin. 1 year later, the scene shifts to a swirling vortex of energy at the South Pole, the designated location for the brutal tournament. A massive, tiered crater has been carved out of the Antarctic ice, transformed into a desolate and imposing fighting arena. High above the arena floor is the representatives' seating area. A clock shows the time is 11:36, just before the event is set to begin. The so-called audience is revealed to be a gallery of the world's untouchable elite, CEOs, royalty, and cartel bosses, all watching the battle for survival remotely from the safety of the nations most likely to win. The final countdown begins, the clock ticking past 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 26 seconds. The world leaders, including Prime Minister Nishizono, watch with grim anticipation. As the final seconds tick away, the central mechanism bearing Gaia's name begins to power down, signifying that the time has come. A brilliant light fills the arena as a new, ethereal figure descends, greeting the stunned representatives below. The being reveals her identity and true form. She is Gaia, planet Earth's highest artificial intelligence, now manifest as a divine, dual-toned humanoid figure. With a serene smile, she says, "May we get to know one another very well." Rekkyou, the secretary, stares in disbelief. He had never seen Gaia's true form before. The AI floats down into the arena, her long, flowing hair trailing behind her. Gaia addresses the audience, explaining that as an AI created for the sake of the planet, she has been tasked with conducting the tournament through her impartial and unemotional judgment. She clarifies her cold purpose to ensure the execution of the battle they settled upon. In order to defend against humanity's extinction by saving the planet, she states, "I shall do nothing to protect humanity at present." A flashback explains Gaia's history. She is an AI that has been in secret use since 2030. Through her calculations, she has predicted countless events and guided humanity through them. The leaders recall Gaia's flawless track record. She developed a vaccine against the rotavirus outbreak in 2033 and even put an end to the Fourth World War. Not a single one of her calculations has ever been wrong. Following her is their only path to survival. Gaia asserts her absolute authority, declaring that here on Earth, she now makes the rules. With that, she begins to explain the system for the nation-toppling battle. She starts by presenting the very tools of this war, the chips representing all of humanity, entrusted to her by the 16 major nations. She explains these chips contain the passcodes for all the oxygen masks, the literal keys to life and death that will be fought over. Gaia explains the prize for the victor of this brutal tournament. The country that wins will be allowed to take one chip, which gives them the power to destroy one area from the 15 losing nations. The grim purpose of a nation-toppling battle is made clear. By inputting the passcode from a chosen chip, the winning nation can cut the power to that area's oxygen masks, wiping out its entire population. A slow pan across the world leaders shows their cold acceptance of this fact. Gaia concludes her explanation of the tournament's rules, but then adds a twist. She has decided to add an extra rule for each match, much to the surprise and anger of the representatives. The new rule is announced. Each losing nation must yield to the winning nation one thing which they desire. The representatives are thrown into confusion and panic, with Rekkyou and others staring in disbelief at this sudden, game-changing addition. The audience of elites erupts in fury, outraged that they weren't told about this rule after spending fortunes to move to a nation that was a safe bet. They demand to know what one thing they desire could possibly mean. Gaia's simple, terrifying answer is anything at all. Gaia explains that she felt this rule was necessary to properly compel the champions to fight. The winner can demand anything: funds, resources, land, military power. The leaders look on in horror. Gaia asserts her authority, stating that she is able to make such a rule for the sake of humanity's survival. The representatives descend into full-blown panic. If this rule is in effect, no one is safe. Even if their nation isn't destroyed, a loss means they could be stripped of their people, land, and resources. No one is getting off easy. The panic turns to violent, desperate rage. The thin veneer of civilization is shattered as the leaders scream at their champions on the field. "You'd better win, damn it. To hell with the other countries. Use whatever you've got to win. If you lose, you're dead meat." As Rekkyou watches the powerful leaders of the world devolve into snarling animals, he has a sudden, horrifying realization. Looking at the screaming faces on the monitors, he understands that all of humanity is now a hostage in this twisted game. While his colleagues call the new rule an excellent idea and a fine means of reducing carbon dioxide. Prime Minister Nishizono agrees. If Japan wins, they will survive and prosper. His secretary, Rekkyou, can only think that this cold logic is weird. Oki looks at the shadowy, indifferent figure of his prime minister and thinks to himself, everyone's gone crazy. As if sensing his thoughts, Nishizono turns and says, and I'm glad you haven't. Nishizono turns his attention back toward the arena, where Japan's rank 16 podium is displayed. He tells his secretary that for now, he must focus solely on protecting their people, setting the stage for the first battle to begin. In many languages, it is called by different names, Orbis Terrae, Chikyu, Urda, Jord, but to Nishizono Hasuchi, it is simply Earth. He thinks of it as the third planet from the Sun, a world of 6 continents and 7 oceans. A planet with water, air, and a core of molten iron, uniquely suitable for life. It is the planet where flowers bloom, a world his mother loved. He clutches a cracked photo of her holding him as a small child. Putting the photo away, Nishizono Hasuchi lets out a long, weary sigh. Lying on the cold, hard ground, looking up at the massive structure above, his thoughts turn grim. So this is war. The planet where battles are fought again and again. The planet of war. The scene opens to a massive, sterile arena located underneath the Thwaites Glacier in the western South Pole. The time is 12:45. An announcer apologizes for the delay, stating that preparations for the national champions are now complete. High above, the national representatives from various countries have taken their seats, observing the arena below. An announcer declares that with everyone present, the event can now begin. A figure appears on the stage. This is the nation-toppling battle. It's a pleasure to meet you all, she says. I'm the AI Olivia, here to serve as the presenter and referee of each match in Gaia's place. As the crowd murmurs, Olivia continues from the central pedestal. To mark the beginning of the first match, I will now present the data on the national champions. Match 1. May the national champion from Western area now enter. The massive gates at the end of the arena begin to grind open. Olivia's voice echoes through the stadium, narrating the champion's history. The first time people came in contact with him was 9 years ago. He was but a petty thief, living by the River Thames in London. His first crime was stealing 4 silver coins. However, those crimes grew indeed. As he was being pursued by the police, he awoke to his powers as a national champion. The police officers chasing him looked on in stunned terror. When he did, he used those powers to single-handedly collapse the London Tower Bridge. The narration plays over a horrifying image of the landmark's destruction. The crowd watches the recap. Their faces a mixture of awe and fear. In the year following that event, his streak of violence continued until he was taken into custody as his country's national champion. The people feared this murderer unleashed upon the land and gave him a particular name, the unidentifiable monster. He recites a line from a poem, a cryptic reference to his monstrous nature. "'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogovs, and the mome wraths outgrabe." Olivia gives the monster a name, a title taken from that very poem, Jabberwock. His feet touch the ground of the arena. From the United Kingdom, the generation of fog, with an 89% resonance with the cells of Theseus. The champion finally appears, walking calmly into the light. Olivia introduces him. The United Kingdom's national champion, Albie Hiddleston. The representatives in the stands are shocked. "Wah, he's just some kid." "A child?" one exclaims. Others murmur in disbelief, calling him a criminal and questioning if someone so skinny can even fight. How could the British Prime Minister leave the country's fate in his hands? Albie Hiddleston stands alone in the vast arena, listening to the commotion from the stands. He scoffs, dismissing the panicked voices. All this noise. He looks up, a bored yet menacing look in his eyes as he seemingly addresses the announcer. Olivia continues, unfazed by his demeanor. Next up, fighting against Albie Hiddleston, A new set of doors at the opposite end of the arena begins to stir. As the massive gates part, Olivia's voice booms, introducing his opponent. From East Asian Area C, the Japanese national champion. Out of the darkness emerges a lone figure, revealed to be Nishizono Hasuchi. Olivia announces that Hasuchi's resonance with the cells of Theseus is 50%. He is a new breed of national champion, only discovered last year. The representatives, including China's President Long Yingying, are aghast. "Oh, that damn prime minister." One mutters, while another exclaims, "Hey, the other one's a kid too." As a new breed, there is no information of note on him, and this is his first ever battle. The representatives whisper amongst themselves, realizing his name, Nishizono, is the same as the Japanese prime minister's. Standing near the arena's edge, a Japanese official looks at the young champion, his mind reeling in disbelief. "It can't be." One representative asks the question on everyone's mind. Is he Prime Minister Nishizono's son? A government aide, sweating, gives a one-word confirmation that sends shockwaves through the stands. He is. Vietnam's president, Luong Hien, is horrified by the revelation. Cruel? How, she demands. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's his own child. How could he just send him in a battle like that? The Japanese Prime Minister, Nishizono Rinjuru, steps forward to address her outrage. With a cold, unfeeling expression, he looks down on her and states, "That is the nature of war." A rule flashes on screen. Any attacks toward anyone besides an active combatant will result in an instant nullification. The two champions, Albie and Hasuchi, stand facing each other under the great bell of Gaia. The final rule of combat is declared. Victory will be decided by one side's inability to fight, or by their death. The two boys stare each other down, the weight of their nations on their shoulders. The nation-toppling battle, Match 1, United Kingdom versus Japan, is about to begin. With the rules set and the champions in place, AI Olivia gives the final command that echoes across the silent arena. Begin combat. Elsewhere, two analysts observe the proceedings. One explains the nature of the champions, mutant children bearing the cells of Theseus, who suddenly cropped up a few years back. The other quotes Darwin's theory of evolution, musing that it's not the strongest or the most intelligent that survives, but the one most adaptable to change. The analyst holds up a tablet, displaying the roster of all 16 champions from around the globe. He looks at their faces, a mix of children and young adults, and wonders aloud if there is still any hope left on Earth. His thought hangs in the air as the full roster is displayed. From Egypt's generation of bones to Mongolia's generation of wings, the faces of humanity's designated saviors and sacrifices stare out. Looking over them, the analyst finishes his plea, "Then show it to me." The scene opens with a flashback to a younger Nishizono Hasuchi and his mother, who is lying in a bed. She tells him that there are many countries in the world they don't know about, and she wants him to see them. Hasuchi recalls how his mother, even while confined to a hospital bed, would fill his imagination with tales of the vast world outside, a world surrounded by seas, where people spoke unknown languages and strange birds sang amidst unfamiliar flowers. He would wonder about that distant world, questioning if the wind smelled different there and what kind of sky those people looked at. A close-up on young Hasuchi's face reveals his deepest desire, a promise born from his mother's stories. One day, I want to see. The scene abruptly shifts to the present, inside a massive gladiatorial arena. The event is announced. The doomsday is wartime. The first decisive battle for the survival of a ruined country is about to begin. UK versus Japan. The combatants are introduced. For Japan, it is Nishizono Hasuchi, a plant generation with a Theseus cell resonance rate of 50%. His opponent is the UK's representative, a misgeneration with a staggering 89% resonance rate. The announcer, an AI, states there are 3 elimination conditions: death, inability to fight, or surrender. The AI navigator, Olivia, adds that there are no draws and that attacking anyone other than the opposing proxy hero is prohibited. In a viewing box, officials watch on, with one commenting on how irresponsible the situation is. The officials continue, lamenting that this battle for humanity's survival is a war where artificial intelligence holds all of human life hostage. The conflict wasn't started by gods or witches. As Hasuchi and his opponent face each other, the narration concludes that this war was started by humans, their feet tense, ready to spring into action. With a burst of speed, Hasuchi charges forward, screaming that it was humans who started this killing. The battle begins. As the UK representative rushes him, Hasuchi is taken aback by his opponent's movement. Hasuchi swiftly dodges and counters with a slash from his sword, appearing to cut down his opponent in a single motion. But Hasuchi stares in shock. The opponent's move wasn't an attack, and his own sword passed through nothing but air. It was an illusion. Suddenly, a new, ethereal AI appears on the battlefield, surprising even the announcer, Olivia. This is the artificial intelligence, Gaia. Gaia interferes, and the UK fighter looks on in confusion as he is caught in her power. The UK fighter is violently thrown backward into a vortex that appears out of nowhere. No way, he thinks, as the audience watches in shock. The impact creates a massive shockwave. The UK fighter, shaken, remarks on how scary that was, while Hasuchi is forced back by the blast. The UK fighter, enraged, realizes the truth. The AIs, Olivia and Gaia, calmly explain that the fighters were merely holograms, just monitors. And now, a rule has been broken. A proxy hero attacks someone other than the opposing proxy hero. The penalty is immediate and brutal. In the stands, a man named Norman has his life extinguished instantly. Panic erupts in the control room as the staff discover that all of their life support systems, oxygen masks and cylinders, have been rendered useless. The horrifying reality sets in for the observers. Looking at the lifeless body on the monitor, they realize that a person has just been killed. Standing alone in the arena, Nishizono Hasuchi looks up at the AI overlords and understands the terrifying truth of their situation. All of humanity are hostages. The UK fighter, Albie Hiddleston, remains composed, stating that the AIs are merely programs. Their highest priority is simply to carry out the decisions humanity has made. Appearing before them, the master AI Gaia delivers a chilling reminder of her absolute power, making it clear she can terminate the lives of any country's citizens at any moment. Please remember this, she warns, her words hanging in the air with deadly finality. With Gaia's threat looming, an official seizes the moment to manipulate his fighter. He approaches Albie Hiddleston, gesturing toward the body of the executed man, and says, "Hiddleston, can you listen to me a little bit?" He has a wife. The official continues to pressure Albie, listing the family Norman left behind, a 2-year-old daughter, an old father, and 2 sisters. He warns that if Albie loses, it won't just be them. Countless other citizens like him will also die. The weight of this responsibility seems to make something in Albie snap. As Hasuchi watches, Albie asks, "What do you think?" before breaking into a disturbing, cackling laugh. His laughter subsides, replaced by a cold annoyance. Annoying. "I know," he says. He reasons that if he has to choose, he'd rather save the people he doesn't know back in his home country of England. With a wild, manic look in his eyes, Albie declares his new resolve. "I will win this tournament. I don't know what happens after that." The English delegation pleads with him to win for their tomorrow. Albie, now emotionally detached, clenches his fist. The real fight is about to start. The battle resumes with terrifying intensity. Albie lunges at Hasuchi with bladed weapons, moving with incredible speed and landing a vicious blow that sends Hasuchi reeling. Albie presses his relentless assault. Hasuchi barely manages to parry a strike aimed at his head, the force of the block shattering his own weapon. Hasuchi realizes with alarm that his opponent has knives attached to both his hands and feet, making him dangerously unpredictable. A powerful kick from Albie sends a shockwave that blasts Hasuchi backward. A massive crater forms as Hasuchi is slammed into the ground. In the stands, One of his countrymen cries out his name in despair. The spectators are in awe of Albie's superhuman strength. This, they realize, is the true power of a proxy hero. Albie walks towards the downed Hasuchi, a lone figure representing the might of an entire country. One night, confronting another nation. The captive audience watches in terror, wondering if their area will be next to fall. However, a group of calm officials observes that neither fighter has even used their cells yet. An analyst begins an explanation, recalling the year 2020 when a swarm of 500 billion desert locusts caused a global food crisis. He elaborates that the locusts traveled over 4,000 kilometers, consuming enough grain to feed 18 million people. The question is how they could fly such an incredible distance when biological changes normally take hundreds of generations. The answer lies in adaptation. In order for an individual to survive among 500 billion of the same species, they evolved on the spot, becoming stronger, jumping higher, and flying farther. This phenomenon, this rapid evolutionary change for the sake of survival, is known as polyphonism. The scene cuts back to the arena. The power of the proxy heroes is just like the locusts. They're a new type of human, evolved for survival, whether they willed it or not. Another commentator poses a question. What is the world's deadliest creature? Not the mosquito. It's the human. He calls this the second instance of polyphonism. In other words, the power of a proxy hero is purely the power to win in a battle against their own species, a power that rivals their closest competitor, other humans. It is a fight to the death. No matter how much blood is shed, they are driven to continue fighting for survival. Against all odds, Hasuchi forces himself back onto his feet. The crowd gasps in amazement. Even Albie is slightly impressed, remarking, "Kinda tough, huh?" Albie asks if Hasuchi plans to surrender, admitting he didn't attack at first because he thought Hasuchi lacked the will to fight. Hasuchi simply replies, "Nope." Hasuchi clarifies his own motivation, stating, "I actually don't want to kill you. I don't fight for my country." Albie scoffs at Hasuchi's sentiment. Whether it's called war or just people being scared of him, he dismisses it with a callous whatever, acknowledging that many have already died because of his power. But the recent death of Norman gives him pause. Just now, one more has died. The word whatever suddenly feels hollow. He contemplates a world where everyone is gone, a world with nothing left to see, and this thought pulls a specific, personal memory to the surface. His thoughts drift to London. He finds the familiar, cloudy sky annoying, but it is his to protect. He clenches his fist, vowing to win and defeat the other substitute heroes. The two fighters lock eyes. Albie's resolve has hardened into a chilling promise. He will kill the other 15 heroes if he must to win this war. From her observation point, the AI Olivia comments that it's a wonderful thing to have a hometown that one wants to protect. Olivia then announces an incoming message from the representative of England, a man named Hiddleston. Albie looks up, surprised by the interruption. Hiddleston appears on the main screen, preparing to announce a decision his country has just made. The Japanese delegation watches, confused and concerned. With a smug grin, Hiddleston reveals the true stakes of the match. He declares that if the UK wins this battle, they will take the proxy hero of Japan. The shocking declaration hangs over the arena, revealing that the prize isn't just survival, but the acquisition of the enemy's greatest weapon. Hasuchi and the Japanese officials are stunned. One of them expected this, however, knowing the political games being played. The captive audience murmurs that if Japan loses, they simply need to give up Hasuchi to be saved. But an official clarifies there's no saving. Losing their hero means losing the core of their military power. Another official explains that proxy heroes possess overwhelming power and, unlike the observers, they do not need oxygen to survive. This makes them the only military power not under Gaia's direct control. They are, in essence, human-shaped weapons. Standing amidst the ruins, Albie embodies this concept. He is one of the nation's cute, important weapons. Another official laments that since Gaia has prohibited nuclear weapons and missiles, countries can no longer control each other with traditional military might. This leads to the question of whether Gaia's programming can be rewritten. The world's balance of power is no longer maintained by armies, but by the very presence of these proxy heroes. A world leader smirks, stating that every country wants to possess this new form of power, and this war is just one example of that ambition. Hasuchi understands the horrifying goal. To keep all the proxy heroes in the world would make a country completely invincible. Albie turns the conversation back to Hasuchi. So what about you? What do you want from my home area? He asks, probing for his opponent's motivation. Hasuchi recalls the history Albie mentioned, that 90 years ago, diplomatic relations between nations were severed to prevent war. Because of this isolation, he has never left his country. But someone, his mother, told him of the many different worlds out there. Clutching his sword, his childhood dream resurfaces. I want to see. He declares his true motivation, not for his country, but for himself. I want to see the world. I want to know things other than myself. Albie listens to Hasuchi's earnest wish to see his country, the sky, and the rain. He finds a simple, pure desire almost childish. A cruel, condescending smile spreads across Albie's face. He mocks Hasuchi's innocence. Such a good boy, huh? On the screen, the UK representative, Hiddleston, gives a chilling command. He grants Albie permission to use it. Albie quietly accepts the order with a simple sure. He then grips his head as a painful transformation begins, dark energy swirling around him. Hasuchi watches in horror as Albie screams in agony. Blood streams from his face as new eyes begin to sprout gruesomely from his skin. As Albie continues his agonizing transformation, the captive audience can only stare in abject horror. This is the true nature of the proxy heroes. The AI Olivia explains that their physical strength isn't the only notable thing. The essence of their power lies in unique cells, evolved through polyphonism, that can freely recombine their own properties. As Albie's body contorts, Olivia reveals the name of this power source, Theseus cells. His body erupts into a grotesque form, a thorny mass of flesh dominated by a single, monstrous eye that covers his being. While one official finds a transformation so beautiful, the others are horrified. They question if this monstrous being can even be called a hero. Albie is now something else entirely. The transformation is complete. Covered in blades, spikes, and unblinking eyes, Albie has become a living nightmare. He is now a monster. A female official reflects that while humans have been called weak for millennia, lacking fangs or claws, they wouldn't have survived if they were truly powerless. Humanity has its own unique weapons. Those weapons are imagination and creation. These two powers, harnessed through the recombination of Theseus cells, allowed humanity to adapt and survive against all odds. This leads to their ultimate ability, singular resonance. The Theseus cells connect to the material that is closest to them and stirs their emotions. And that resonance becomes their power. As the narration concludes, a thick mist begins to swirl around Hasuchi's feet. Suddenly, the entire arena is enveloped in a dense fog, obscuring visibility. This is Hasuchi's power, the generation of mist. From his command post, the UK representative Hiddleston issues an order to his monster. Hiddleston, bring the proxy hero of Japan back here. Any form is all right. I'll leave it to you. The Japanese Prime Minister watches in silence. Through the fog, the monstrous Albie calls out to Nishizono Hasuchi, acknowledging that he heard the order to capture him. Hasuchi's voice echoes back with a chilling calm. Yeah, so scary. He then issues a terrifying threat of his own, promising to dismantle Albie piece by piece, down to his brain and eyeballs. Albie reaches out, vowing to bring Hasuchi back even if only his cells remain. As the two prepare to clash, the narration proclaims that proxy heroes, the new mankind, will change the world. In the grand arena of the nation-toppling battle tournament, the Rekkyou Sensen is finally revealed. Watching from above, Yvette Muller confirms its appearance alongside a divine-looking woman with a halo. Blood splatters across the battlefield. The UK's proxy hero, Albie Hiddleston, reels from an attack. He identifies the power that struck him, the singular resonance. A close-up shows Albie's eye, now a black void as he bleeds. Below him, an audience of world leaders watches the brutal spectacle unfold on their monitors. The scene shifts to Japan's proxy hero, Nishizono Hasuchi, who finds himself enveloped in the power of his opponent, the generation of fog. He notes that it's less like mist and more like a gas, realizing he needs to focus. Suddenly, Hasuchi is struck by an invisible force, his eyes wide with shock as he vomits blood. Albie's voice echoes from the fog, warning him that to breathe is to die. The fog itself seems to attack Hasuchi, solidifying around him. The watching audience is stunned, and Hasuchi himself questions if the fog is becoming a solid. Hasuchi is thrown back by the solidified fog, hearing a metallic clang as if struck by blades. The force is overwhelming. He falls to the ground in agony, realizing the horrifying truth of this power. His eyes have been scratched, and opening them again would mean blindness. If he breathes, the blades in the air will slash his lungs. Completely overwhelmed, Hasuchi questions the nature of this incredible power as he falls helplessly, all while the audience and commentators continue to watch from their privileged seats. Back with the commentators, Yvette Muller examines the fog's composition. She touches a particle, sensing that this is not just simple water vapor. Her analysis reveals the terrifying truth. The fog is a scattered flurry of blades, composed of shrapnel and metal. The woman with the halo remarks that this power is related to the UK's nickname, the Foggy City of London, calling it a bad joke. The origin of this power is explained. It's linked to the worst air pollution in London during the Industrial Revolution, a dense fog of deadly toxins that killed over 10,000 people. At that moment, Albie awakened his power, and his very body changed, becoming something inhuman. This is the power of the UK's proxy hero. With every thesis cell in his body, he can transform himself into a thick fog and an arsenal of deadly knives, embodying the pollution that once choked his city. Looking down at the defeated Hasuchi, Albie acknowledges the amazing power but demands his surrender. He gives him a chilling ultimatum: give up in the next 3 seconds or he'll be decapitated. Hasuchi lies motionless on the ground, seemingly defeated. But then, something catches Albie's attention, a stirring from the silent battlefield. Albie looks on, startled, his eyes wide with disbelief as something unexpected begins to happen. From the pools of Hasuchi's spilled blood, black tendrils erupt from the ground and lash out with incredible speed. Albie cries out in pain as the tendrils strike his leg. The attack is swift and vicious, leaving him bewildered and injured. Stumbling back, Albie frantically tries to understand where the attack came from. It seemed to erupt from the ground itself, a sudden and unforeseen counterattack. He then has a horrifying realization. The attacks aren't random. They're sprouting from every single drop of blood he spilled from Hasuchi, turning the entire battlefield into a trap. As the commentators look on, Hasuchi begins to rise. He calmly asks Albie if the sight is beautiful, revealing the name of his ability: Generation of Plants, his singular resonance. From the blood-soaked earth, a massive, tree-like structure blooms exuberantly. Hasuchi stands before his creation as Albie watches in shock, the tide of the battle having completely turned. Now back on his feet and wielding his sword, Hasuchi stands renewed. His face, no longer showing pain, is set with grim determination, ready to continue the fight. As Albie stares at the massive structure, wondering if it's a spear, the commentators make a startling observation from their deck. The tree blooming from blood isn't just any plant. It's made of cherry blossoms. The mention of cherry blossoms triggers a flashback. The scene shifts to a sprawling cityscape where a man in a suit adjusts his tie, as a broadcast announces the sunny afternoon weather for March 1st, a time associated with the blooming of those very flowers. The scene continues to be a flashback, set against a news report of a severe heat wave in Shinjuku, with temperatures hitting 41 degrees Celsius at 1 a.m. In contrast, The news also mentions that cherry blossoms have bloomed for a second time this year. In a hospital room, a man who appears to be an aide informs a young Nishizono Hasuchi that he will organize his mother's funeral. Hasuchi, clutching some of his mother's belongings, asks if his father, the prime minister, will be there. Hasuchi reflects on his absence when his mother was taken off life support. The aide explains that his father is currently visiting areas devastated by a recent super typhoon and couldn't reschedule, but he hopes they can still make it in time for the wake and burial. The aide hands a package of his mother's remaining possessions to Hasuchi inside the now-empty hospital room. Among the items, Hasuchi finds his mother's favorite book. He notes that she cherished it so much, keeping it always by her bedside, especially since it was published in a year when physical books had been banned. Tucked inside the book, Hasuchi discovers a handwritten letter from his mother. As he begins to read, he's struck by her words. Though her time was ending, she felt a strange sense of peace rather than the heavy weight of regret he expected. The letter reveals his mother's lie. She had wanted to see so much more of his life. His entrance ceremony, his graduation, his anger, and his laughter. As he reads on, he finds a plea for someone named Rin-san to take care of him. The letter triggers a memory of his last conversation with his mother. He recalls her calling his name and apologizing. To his confusion, in his memory, his mother sits in her hospital bed and smiles gently. She apologizes for not being with him anymore, but still, her final words are of love and care, a plea for him to eat well, and a heartfelt thank you for being born. Back in the present moment of the flashback, Hasuchi stands in the sterile hospital room, his mother's final words of gratitude echoing in his mind. He looks at the last line of the letter, where his mother's final wish is written, "I wonder if I have left you in a world in which you can bloom in." The flashback ends, and we return to the battle. Tears stream down Hasuchi's face as his mother's words, "I'm grateful to have had you," resonate with his own feelings. Fueled by her memory, Hasuchi channels his power. Her question of whether he could flourish in this world is answered as he unleashes a new attack, the growth of 100 flowers, causing Albie to react. In response, Albie, battered but not broken, unleashes a technique of his own, whispering the name Suzuku's Bloom. A massive wave of dark energy erupts from Albie, surging across the arena towards Hasuchi, shocking the commentators watching the fight. The onlooking world leaders watch silently from their screens as the cataclysmic attack reshapes the battlefield. The ground is now covered in a dark liquid. Albie groans in pain, seemingly suffering from the aftermath of his own powerful attack. Albie clutches his stomach, wounded and exhausted. He looks down and questions the substance on the ground, identifying them as blood petals. The two proxy heroes face each other once more. Hasuchi, representing the generation of plants, stands in stark opposition to the wounded Albie. A tense silence hangs between them, both warriors battered and bloody, their gazes locked. Albie breaks the silence, looking up at the screens of the watching world leaders. He says he can't decide whether to be a citizen of Hasuchi's envisioned country or one of theirs, expressing his disgust for the powers that be. Elsewhere, observers comment on the battle. They acknowledge having aspirations for a better tomorrow and fighting a war to protect the future, but one of them looks out at the carnage and declares, "This is not the tomorrow I want for the future of humanity." Hasuchi clarifies his own desire. He wants a better tomorrow, a world where people can simply live. Albie counters that such a world doesn't exist yet. Hasuchi agrees, his face set with grim determination as he states that to achieve that world, he must therefore win this tournament. Looking directly at his opponent, Hasuchi declares that it's okay for Albie to surrender because he is the one who will win. His bold proclamation echoes through the arena, reaching another team watching intently from afar. From an observation deck high above, a blonde spectator from another team smirks, remarking that Hasuchi has spunk. Down in the arena, Albie hears the defiant words and begins to laugh, a low, unhinged sound. Albie's laughter explodes into a furious roar. He mocks Hasuchi for talking big with only a 50% resonance level and promises to cut him down until every last drop of hope is gutted from his cold, dead body. Hasuchi smiles, his resolve unbroken. He calmly challenges Albie. Then come at me, because I will break all of those blades until they are none. The two commentators, Yvette Muller and the woman with the halo, observe the standoff. Yvette finds it strange, noting that both the proxy heroes of Japan and England seem to want the same thing. Her companion agrees, stating that is exactly why they are fighting. The fight is framed as a timeless struggle. Just as it has been throughout history, equals will fight again and again, shedding pure blood and awful tears. The perspective pulls back to show the vast arena and the earth hanging in the sky above. Hasuchi declares that this struggle, this fight for life, is what the world is all about. A montage begins, narrating the history of the world. It speaks of humanity's development, their cultures, beliefs, and an era where people could freely cross national borders. But from the developed minds of humans, knowledge and skills meant for survival were often used to solve conflicts through violence and war. After countless devastating wars, humanity found itself on the verge of extinction. Since survival is their greatest instinct, it was natural for them to join together to form a new world. To avoid any more unnecessary conflicts, the current world was divided into 16 areas, and all diplomatic relations between them were severed. But while it is instinct to huddle together for survival, it is also instinct to fight and steal to survive. In a world where they can unite, conflict will inevitably arise once more. The battle resumes in a violent clash. Hasuchi and Albie trade blows at high speed, a whirlwind of blades and blood. Their brutal dance continues, each fighter pushing through the pain to land a strike on the other. The two are locked in a desperate exchange. Albie takes a sword to the stomach as Hasuchi endures a blow of his own. The world leaders watch the brutal display from their monitors. Hasuchi slices across Albie's side, drawing blood. The two fighters are battered, but neither is willing to yield. The commentators analyze the exchange. Hasuchi's attack nearly decapitated Albie, who couldn't avoid it completely and was hit in the side. In return, the British proxy hero landed a sharp blow to Hasuchi's abdomen. They conclude that the end of the fight is just a matter of time. Hasuchi stands firm, his face a mask of fierce determination, readying himself for the next clash despite his grievous wound. Albie is shocked as Hasuchi withstands another one of his attacks, unable to comprehend his opponent's resilience. Hasuchi screams in frustration, pushing back against Albie's onslaught. What the hell is with this guy? Just give up already. Fall and don't get up again. Suddenly, a new sound cuts through the battle. The audience of world leaders roars in fury, one of them screaming, "What the fuck are you doing?" The two fighters pause, stunned by the outburst. The leader's bloodlust is unleashed. They scream at the fighters, "We're not here to watch kids fight. Get on with it. Kill each other." Albie stares up at the monitors, his rage and disbelief growing with every shout. Hasuchi is equally appalled by the crowd's vile shouts, wondering what is wrong with these people. Meanwhile, the blonde observer notes that the air itself is stirring with attention. For Albie, the world dissolves into a storm of sensory overload. The leader's voices, his own heartbeat, the sound of his breathing. It all becomes an unbearable tide of noise. He clutches his head, screaming for it to shut up. He glares with pure hatred, first at the screens showing the monitor guys, then at Hasuchi, then at the entire damned world. The noise is just too much. Finally snapping, Albie unleashes all his pain and rage. He screams at Hasuchi and the entire world, "If this tomorrow is supposedly coming, how in hell can any of you think of this as normal?" The scene shifts to a flashback to the old East End of London in the year 2199. In a grimy alley, a small, disheveled street kid, a young Albie, is seen running. At a bustling outdoor soup kitchen, a kind-faced young woman named Rose is called for help. She spots the young Albie lurking nearby, noting that the street kid has returned, and calls him over. Rose warmly offers the young, battered Albie a bowl of stew, telling him he can join them to eat if he likes. As they sit together, Rose cheerfully asks Albie how old he is. He mutters that he doesn't know, maybe 8 or 9. She tells him the soup kitchen runs every Sunday, but he can show up whenever he wants. Albie presents a few old coins, asking if it's enough to pay. Rose is taken aback for a moment, then laughs kindly, telling him it's okay and the food is free because he is so polite. Rose correctly deduces that Albie stole the money. She calls him a clever rascal, but with a gentle smile, she acknowledges that in a place like this, such actions can't always be helped. Rose refuses the stolen money, but offers him a way to pay through a donation of his time by helping her. It is in this moment of kindness that she decides on his name, thinking to herself, Albie, I think. With a bright smile, Rose officially asks Albie for his help, promising that while she can't pay him back with money, she'll make him something delicious afterward. Albie reflects on this chance meeting. He considered himself born by accident, but meeting Rose felt different. He quickly proves to be very skilled with a knife while chopping vegetables, impressing Rose, who tells him he could be a great chef. Rose tells Albie to bring any friends along next time, but he admits he doesn't have any. The narration reveals that Rose was the first person Albie ever met who didn't take no for an answer, persistently showing him kindness. He remembers her as a truly generous person. The scene shifts to the two of them sitting together on a rooftop, where Albie asks Rose if she likes helping people. Rose shares a secret with Albie. The woman she calls mom isn't her real mother. She, too, ran away from home and lived on the streets like him. But that woman was always there for her, inspiring Rose to want to be just like her. As they sit on the rooftop, Albie asks why she helps people. Instead of answering directly, Rose just says it's better than messing around and asks for his hand. Rose places a beautifully ornate knife in his hand. She tells him she took it when she left home, and since he's good with his hands, he should have it. She adds that it's not for cutting apples or sharpening pencils, but he can use it as he likes. As the sun rises over the London skyline, Rose points it out. The two sit together, watching the city awaken, a rare moment of peace and beauty. Albie reflects on Rose's lesson. People have a tendency to only see the bad and dirty things in the world, but in reality, there are beautiful things in this world too. He looks at the beautiful city with a newfound perspective. The peaceful moment is shattered when Albie points out smoke rising in the distance. Rose looks over, horrified to realize the smoke is coming from their neighborhood. They stare in horror as they see their building, their home, completely engulfed in flames. A man in a fine suit appears, whom Rose recognizes as the Lord Mayor. He politely greets them and informs them that the area is being cleaned for an ecologization program, asking them to evacuate. Rose is confused and demands to know where everyone else is. The Lord Mayor clarifies with a chilling smile. They aren't evacuating people, they are cleaning. He condescendingly lectures Rose that the world will be a better place if they get rid of some unnecessary things. Albie notices a strange smell in the air as the building burns. Rose looks on in dawning horror, realizing the terrible truth of the situation. Rose confronts the mayor, asking him what he means. Are we dirty? That we don't count in this world. The mayor's smug silence is all the answer she needs. With desperation in her eyes, Rose pleads with him, her voice breaking. We're here, today, just trying to live dash. Her plea is cut short as the Lord Mayor raises a pistol, aiming it directly at her. Oops, I'm sorry about that, he says with false regret before adding a chilling, but the mayor's face twists into a monstrous grin. He explains that their very existence is a waste of valuable resources, and that cleaning them is, in his twisted view, the ecologically correct thing to do. But as Albie stabbed the mayor, the man's gun went off. The bullet strikes Rose, and she collapses to the ground. With her dying breath, she looks at Albie and whispers, "You idiot! I didn't teach you how to use it like that." Young Albie stands frozen in shock, holding the bloody knife. The mayor's men panic, screaming and calling for an ambulance, as their leader lies dying. An overhead view captures the tableau of tragedy: the dead mayor, his frantic aides, the fallen Rose, and the small, solitary figure of Albie standing amidst the chaos. His world crumbling around him. Albie slowly walks towards Rose's still form, his mind unable to process what has just happened. He looks down at Rose's face, her eyes lifeless, blood trickling from her mouth. The horror of the moment finally hits him, reflected in his wide, terrified eyes. Stumbling back in shock and grief, Albie turns to flee, the bloody knife that Rose gave him still clutched tightly in his hand. As the authorities cry out that the boy with the knife is getting away, Albie runs. He thinks only of the knife, now covered in blood, as police are alerted that he is heading towards Tower Bridge. As he runs, a memory of Rose's words echoes in his mind. She had told him that people are just people, and it can't be helped if they aren't treated kindly, as they are often just out for their own selfish wants. The memory continues. Rose had told him that because of the world's selfishness, when someone is kind to you, you must always remember that feeling. Just remember, use these feelings towards others. The memory fades as Albie continues to run, now a crying child clutching a bloody knife, utterly alone. In this world, his only connection to kindness has been severed, leaving him with nothing but grief and the blood-stained gift from the person he lost. He reaches Tower Bridge, and Rose's final lesson resonates in his shattered mind. There are still some beautiful things out there. As the police close in, Albie is overwhelmed by a giant, grasping hand, a manifestation of the world's crushing cruelty. In his despair, Rose's philosophy becomes twisted. He decides that the filthy, dirty things of the world, the uncaring people, should all be taken away. But as for the beautiful things, their tomorrow shall soon arrive for them. A tear falls, and a spark of immense power ignites within him. Unleashing a primal scream of pure anguish, Albie's power explodes outwards, shattering the bridge and blasting the authorities away. A massive vortex of destruction rips through Tower Bridge, marking the day the boy's world was irrevocably shattered. The flashback ends, returning to the present battle. Albie stands at the center of his own storm, screaming that this whole world is nothing but noise. In the UK's observation booth, an official desperately screams for Hiddleston to calm down, warning that his power is becoming too thick and fast, and he'll die if he continues. Albie screams back a defiant, "Shut up." Albie directs his fury at Hasuchi's ideals, sarcastically asking if everyone, including the bloodthirsty monitors, deserves to see a beautiful sunrise. He declares that these noisy bastards don't deserve a tomorrow and don't matter in his world. He launches a final, desperate attack. Hasuchi stands his ground, and the blade-like energy grazes the side of his head, drawing blood. The observers are stunned. The Japanese aide asks in disbelief if Hasuchi just took the hit. From their booth, the commentators confirm it. He didn't dodge. As Albie's storm of blades rages, Hasuchi stands firm and asks a simple, piercing question that cuts through the noise. "Did you have someone important to you?" Hasuchi shows his understanding, stating that Albie believes in that person's tomorrow, a world filled with wonderful, beautiful things that she would have wished to see. Albie can only stare, stunned into silence. Hasuchi shares his own motivation, revealing his desire to live in the world his own important person dreamed of. He admits it's just a feeling, but it connects them. Albie begins to understand. Albie rejects Hasuchi's empathy, screaming, "Don't you dare talk like you understand me." He claims there is nothing left for him in this world and asks why he would care about humans anymore. But his resolve shifts. Filled with a new determination, Albie declares that even if he cares for nothing else, he will not let his country be destroyed. He states that he will protect his country no matter what, because Rose told him this world was beautiful. Hearing this, Hasuchi understands and accepts his decision. The commentators note that Hasuchi somehow managed to calm the storm of his opponent's rage. The two heroes face off one last time, both battered and pushed to their breaking point. Albie acknowledges they are at their limits, but Hasuchi defiantly replies, "Limit? What do you mean? I can do this all day. With their resolve set, the two proxy heroes charge at each other for one final, desperate clash, a flurry of blades and blooming power. The battle concludes with an announcement. Japan is the winner. Hasuchi stands victorious on the ravaged battlefield, while Albie lies defeated. The scene shifts to the Team USA waiting room, where a group of officials has been observing the fight. A U.S. official named Nathan Klein discusses Albie's history. He notes that the British boy became a proxy hero 9 years ago when his Theseus cells awakened after a family member's death, and that his military record is extremely impressive even before his official training. A female official, a scientist, adds that they are still investigating how Albie activates his cells. She holds up a screen showing several of the proxy heroes, stating this tournament is a golden opportunity for research since it's the first time they've all been brought together. She reveals their sinister hidden agenda. If they continue their studies on the Theseus cells during the tournament, they might find a way to mass-produce artificial proxy heroes. Her superior smirks, praising her hard work. A new voice cuts in, cool and detached. Mass production? You want to make more of me? The speaker is revealed to be Aiden D. Adams, USA's proxy hero, with an incredible resonance rate of 99%. He sits casually amidst a pile of snacks, calling the idea of his mass production pretty disgusting. He then praises the Japanese fighter for winning despite having a lower resonance rate. Aiden muses on Hasuchi's power, the generation of plants. He notes that plants will likely survive even when humanity perishes and wonders aloud if that means anything for the spunky dandelion. Aiden turns to Nathan Klein and asks if the tournament will reveal how proxy heroes are born. The scientist admits it's hard to say, but they are hopeful. Klein tells Aiden not to think about unnecessary things. Klein places a hand on Aiden's shoulder, reminding him of his duty. He calls Aiden a chosen, strong, powerful human, a proxy hero meant to protect his country. He gives Aiden a direct order. Focus on the fight and don't underestimate his opponent. That is an order to win. Aiden smirks, questioning the title of a hero who has a duty to protect his country, wishing they had called him something with a better ring to it, all while knowing the power his 99% resonance rate holds. The scene shifts for the last time to the Chinese team waiting room. There, we are introduced to Zhong Jie, the China SF national head, and her assistant, Xiao Xing, as they wake up their fighter. They wake China's proxy hero, Hui Shi of the Generation of Fangs, who possesses a 92% resonance rate. He lazily opens his eyes, asking if it's time for his battle already. His handlers tell him the first match is about to be decided and that he should watch. When he asks who will win, they tell him to see for himself. Sighing, Hui Shi asks for the tablet to see his bracket. He notes that it was created by the AI lady, Gaia. Lying on his back, he examines the tournament bracket, remarking, "What a mess." He cynically adds that they're letting the AI make all their decisions for them. The full bracket for the nation-toppling battle tournament is displayed, showing the matchups between the world's remaining powers. Hui Shi simply wonders who will win. The fight between Nishizono Hasuchi and Albie reaches its desperate climax. Covered in wounds, they face each other, with Albie taunting Hasuchi to risk his very life. From a viewing platform, the AI overseer Gaia and her aide watch intently. They note that both fighters are at their absolute limits, and the next attack could be the final blow. Gaia's aide asks who she thinks will win. With a confident smirk, Gaia simply tells her to watch as below, Hasuchi is caught in a swirling vortex of Albie's power. Caught in a storm of blades, Hasuchi desperately parries each one. He realizes that Albie is becoming desperate, relentlessly creating new blades the moment one is deflected. As Hasuchi is preoccupied with the endless barrage, Albie closes the distance, aiming to divert his attention for a decisive strike. The strategy works perfectly. With his attention split, Hasuchi is left completely defenseless as blades converge on him from every direction. Hasuchi grits his teeth in frustration. Even when he tries to counterattack, Albie's control over the fog is too perfect stopping any of his swings from connecting. Looking at his bloodied and battered opponent, Hasuchi realizes Albie is truly giving the fight everything he has. The observers agree, calling the incredible battle of proxy heroes. The observers discuss the conditions for a proxy hero's defeat. Besides death, a hero can be declared unable to fight. Gaia clarifies that despite their generational powers, they are still fundamentally human. The analysis continues, listing the symptoms of death for a proxy hero which are identical to a normal human's: respiratory failure, dilated pupils, and cardiac arrest. In a lab, 2 researchers conclude that the only way to incapacitate them is to chop off their head or stop their heart. The female researcher laughs, revealing the secret to defeating a proxy hero: destroying the powerhouse of their Theseus cells, their core. This source of their immense power is also their greatest weakness. Back in the arena, the battle rages on. It's a clash between the fearsome, aggressive power of Albie's fog and the stubborn, unyielding tenacity of Hasuchi's plants. Their weapons collide once more in a shower of sparks, the 2 fighters locked in a desperate struggle, making one wonder who will be the last one standing. Albie grows frustrated. No matter what he does, Hasuchi keeps getting back up like a weed. He desperately searches for an opening to strike at his opponent's core. As he deflects another attack, Hasuchi notices something. He sees a potential opening, a slight flaw in Albie's assault, and realizes he has to take the chance. Hasuchi focuses on the strange eyes floating around him, Albie's singular resonance. He understands that they won't stop watching him, meaning Albie's field of vision is the entire arena. Suddenly, everything clicks into place for Hasuchi. He recalls that Albie activated this power after destroying his own eye. He gets stronger when his emotions run wild. Hasuchi looks at the black liquid streaming from Albie's eyes. They aren't tears, because tears don't have cells. He finally understands. Albie's core is his lacrimal gland. The battlefield dynamic shifts. Albie knows his core has likely been discovered, but he believes it doesn't matter where he hits Hasuchi. Meanwhile, Hasuchi struggles to find an opening, knowing Albie's blades will follow him anywhere. With the weakness identified, Hasuchi's objective becomes brutally clear. He must aim for Albie's head to destroy his core. The observers theorize on the nature of Hasuchi's power. As Japan's proxy, his Theseus cells take the form of a seed, allowing him to turn his own blood into petal-like blades and bloom across the arena like a plant. The power of a primordial earth god. Albie, at his wit's end, decides to gamble everything on one final attack. He summons the last of his strength, preparing to use his cabinet of curiosities, the specimen of fog, at maximum release. Albie unleashes his ultimate technique, a swirling vortex of darkness that consumes the arena as he chants, "Ashes to ashes, roses to ravens." The spectators watch in horror. But in a shocking turn, Hasuchi slices straight through the fog. Albie stares in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend how his ultimate attack was breached. Hasuchi has reached him just in time. Gaia, Hasuchi says, having finally caught his opponent. Albie is stunned, wondering how it was possible when he had blocked every angle of attack. He looks down, a horrifying realization dawning in his eyes. Albie realizes in horror how he was defeated. The plants growing on him aren't from an external attack. They came from his own blood, which Hasuchi had turned into a weapon. Meanwhile, the observers are confused, noting that the Japanese proxy's stat levels and resonance rate are suddenly increasing. An analyst explains the unique nature of Hasuchi's power. Like a cherry blossom, his body and abilities grow stronger in response to the extreme heat accumulated from his wounds and intense combat, allowing him to achieve pure beauty in bloom before falling. Pushing his resonance rate to 90%, Hasuchi unleashes his final, desperate attack, the weight of 1,000 cherry blossoms in a one strike. Even in a state near death, his power becomes even more beautiful and potent. The attack connects with devastating force, striking Albie directly across the face. Hasuchi, with grim determination, puts every last ounce of his strength into the blow. The crowd of world leaders and spectators who fill the massive arena watch in stunned silence as the battle comes to an abrupt and violent conclusion. Albie lies defeated in a small crater in the center of the arena, motionless. The various international observers look on, shocked by the sudden turn of events. His final attack spent, Hasuchi collapses to his knees, using his sword to prop himself up. He's completely exhausted and bleeding heavily from his numerous wounds. As Albie lies motionless on the ground, the crowd erupts in confusion, shouting for him to get up and questioning if Japan has won. High above, Gaia instructs her avatar, Olivia, to confirm the British proxy hero status. Olivia scans the field and reports that while Albie's heart is still beating, his core has been destroyed and he is unconscious. She then coldly asks Hasuchi what he wants to do, pointing out that this is the perfect opportunity to kill him. Barely able to lift his head, Hasuchi weakly replies that he can't move anymore and to just leave it as is. Understanding his decision, Olivia prepares to make the official announcement. With a grand gesture, Olivia announces to the entire stadium that for the first fight of the first round of the nation-toppling battles, victory goes to Japan. The stadium-sized screen confirms the result. The audience reacts with a mixture of shock and disbelief. An official announcement declares that medical care is now needed for the fighters, and large gates open to the arena floor. A medical team from the UK is already on site, rushing onto the field with a stretcher and medical equipment to attend to their fallen proxy. Gaia addresses the Prime Minister of Japan, congratulating him on his region's great victory. She then coyly reminds him that he hasn't stated what prize he wants for winning. The Prime Minister's secretary, Oki, contacts the collapsed Hasuchi. He informs him that he has been given the right to decide on the prize, a development that shocks the Japanese delegation and leaves Hasuchi utterly bewildered. The camera focuses on the UK's delegation, their faces etched with despair and anguish. Below, as medics approach, Hasuchi looks down, wondering if his own wishes are selfish. The Prime Minister of the UK makes a surprising request. He says that he has heard Japan is a land of rose and rain, and that all he wants is to see Hasuchi's country, because in his own, roses don't bloom anymore. The Japanese secretary, Oki, listens, sensing the complex political situation. Lying on the ground while being tended to by medics, Hasuchi confirms that he only wants to continue this peaceful desire, stating he has no intention of causing harm. The UK Prime Minister looks down on him, asking if that is all he wants. As the UK medical team surrounds the unconscious Albie, one of them is suddenly and brutally shot, falling lifelessly onto the arena floor. It's revealed that the shooter is the Prime Minister of the UK. He stands over Albie's body with a smoking gun, remarking that even the strongest weapon in their nation should have been able to dodge one lead bullet. Hasuchi watches from afar, his expression one of pure horror. Chaos erupts. The audience is confused, medics are screaming, and Gaia's aide lets out a shriek. The UK Prime Minister scoffs, calling his fallen hero a hunk of junk, as Hasuchi can only stare in disbelief. Panic spreads as a medic flees the scene in terror. The UK Prime Minister, his face twisted in a mask of desperation and madness, screams that it's all over for his country. As the chaos unfolds, Gaia calmly explains that the panicked man is not an intruder, but a member of the medical team grieving his country's defeat. On the ground, the dying Albie looks up at his killer and whispers, "My God, what have you done?" An aide screams at the Prime Minister, asking what he's doing since Hasuchi is just a kid. But the PM is completely unhinged, screaming that it doesn't matter, calling the proxy hero a thing, a cold-blooded killer, and nothing more than a freaking weapon. The Prime Minister's breakdown continues as he confesses he only agreed to help because Albie was a sure win. Now that he has lost, the PM believes it's all over for them. Hasuchi can only listen to the horrifying confession, his face grim. The Prime Minister's rage becomes completely unhinged. He repeatedly kicks Albie's lifeless body, screaming curses and calling him a filthy piece of garbage for having screwed them over. The crowd descends into panic, with people screaming that because of this loss, the entire UK is going to be killed. The Prime Minister then turns his murderous intent toward the collapsed Hasuchi, who weakly pleads for him to stop. Looming over the injured boy, the Prime Minister points his gun directly at Hasuchi, his face a mask of rage as he screams, "It's all because of you." As the Prime Minister's finger tightens on the trigger, his own aide screams for him to stop. Hasuchi can only watch in terror as the gun is about to fire. In a flash, the Japanese Prime Minister's secretary, Oki, intervenes. He strikes the Prime Minister's arm, sending the gun flying and saving Hasuchi at the last second. Oki calmly stands over the now-fallen UK Prime Minister. He turns to the shocked Hasuchi and the stunned audience, saying simply, "Don't worry." As he walks across the blood-stained arena floor toward the injured proxy hero, Oki cryptically and calmly addresses Hasuchi as "my son." In the vast, empty stadium, surrounded by the signs of the brutal battle, Oki stands before the kneeling Hasuchi and addresses him by name. Oki begins a grim lesson, telling Hasuchi that the situation they're in is not something that can be resolved with pleasantries like conversations or handshakes. He elaborates, telling the boy that in this arena, there's only one fundamental truth: whether you will win or lose. Gesturing towards the body of the fallen Prime Minister, Oki explains the stakes. The outcome is to be robbed or to be stolen from. This is not about a hopeful tomorrow. Oki declares that this is about today and now. It is the single, fleeting moment that determines whether you will live or die. He implores Hasuchi to understand this, once and for all. With the full weight of the day's horrific events behind his words, Oki looks down at the wide-eyed Hasuchi and delivers the final, shattering truth. This is war. Oki's demeanor shifts back to that of a handler. He tells Hasuchi that they need to treat his injuries, because he must be fixed up for the next fight. An official summary appears over the carnage of the arena. At 13 hours, 32 minutes, and 14 seconds, the British proxy hero was defeated, then subsequently killed by an intruder's bullet. The chapter ends on a somber note: blood, tears, and human feelings. War turns everything black.